how this plays out in the world of equity compensation is that transparency is not the norm, nor should it be. Now, this is probably not very popular of a perspective among people of my vintage, because there's this whole culture of transparency, transparency, transparency. This is what people want. Well, you're not working for the government. You're working for a startup who's trying to do this amazing feat of creating something out of nothing. So, people who are successful in negotiating their startup offers are very respectful of this. That being said, they do ask for information about the company, but they're very pointed in what they ask for. I'm Mary Russell. I'm an attorney, and I work with individuals on their startup equity. I also teach courses and blog on the topic. The purpose of my practice and my content is to help individuals make the most of their startup equity opportunities. Startup hires can, even very sophisticated people, can lose the upside or miss out on the upside of joining a startup if they lose track of sort of the big picture themes of startup equity, the basic principles of what it means to be at a startup. It's very easy to do when you're getting into the details, all the weeds of restricted stock and stock options and RSUs and all the fine print details. So this video is designed to outline the basic principles or themes of startup equity to help you see the big picture. You can consider this sort of the secret key to my blogs and my courses to help you keep your eye on what's important. So here we go. On to the secret keys of startup equity. Another element of startup culture or principle of startup equity is that it's very competitive. These companies are fighting hard to grow and gain market share. It's a very competitive environment. You can imagine any environment where we're talking about creating billions of dollars of value out of nothing, it might be competitive, right? That makes perfect sense. There's a lot of people who want in on that game. Okay. Well, so as a result of that, these companies tend to be very secretive. And as well they should, right? If everybody knows what they're doing and how they're doing it, they're probably going to have more competitors in the market than they might otherwise have. Or their investors might not be very impressed with them if they're, blabbing their business all over town. Fair enough. That's part of the deal. So how this plays out in the world of equity compensation is that transparency is not the norm, nor should it be. Now, this is probably not very popular of a perspective among people of my vintage, because there's this whole culture of transparency, transparency, transparency. This is what people want. Well, you're not working for the government. You're working for a startup who's trying to do this amazing feat of creating something out of nothing. So people who are successful in negotiating their startup offers are very respectful of this. That being said, they do ask for information about the company, but they're very pointed in what they ask for. And most importantly, when people who are successful in these information gathering and their negotiations at startups they know what they're asking for in terms of information and why they're asking for it. So if they get a response, which is very, very normal, the company will say, often a recruiter will say, "Oh, we couldn't possibly tell you that. You're being very unreasonable. You could never ask for that. We could never tell you that." So if somebody is asking a reasonable question, and we'll get far into the details of what people ask for and what's reasonable as we go into the blog and the courses, but you're asking something that's reasonable and you know why you're asking it, sort of what are you going to do with the information? Then if you get a no back, then it's easy to have a sort of conversation among reasonable adults and say, I'll need to know that information so that I can evaluate the offer based on this angle that I'm looking at. So thank you. I look forward to being in touch with the person who can't answer that question. Right. That's a little sassier maybe than most people would be, but that's the concept. You can have an adult conversation rather than a power struggle over information. I think one example would be in almost no situation is it reasonable or realistic to ask for a cap table, the company's capitalization table, as part of evaluating an offer. I can think of maybe 5 times in the last 5 years where that would have been appropriate in my world that I'm working in. But people certainly do ask for key details that would be in that cap table so that they can look at the percentage ownership or the dollar value of the equity or whatever angle they're looking at. So just keep that in mind. They're being secretive for a reason. They're not the government, and they shouldn't be telling you everything. So that's what I have for you today on these big picture startup equity terms. I hope this is helpful as you're reading the blog or taking the courses so you can see the lay of the land, have that orientation of what's going on from a high level perspective before you get into the fine print and all the weeds and things. I'll post my upcoming course topics and dates for the cohort courses underneath this video, so you'll have that to refer to if you'd like to take a course. I look forward to seeing you, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.